You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Oh my God! Oh no! He's necking on air. He did that on purpose. He knew we were coming out, and he wanted to show some skin, because he's got some skin in the game. That's right. Live every single Tuesday night, right here on all your favorite social media accounts. We love having you all join us for the latest movie news and movie reviews. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian. And Truffle Shuffle. Truffle Shuffle. He was definitely shuffling that truffle. They were getting their coffee. Had to get primed and ready for the show. That's right. They got it. They got it in time, but they didn't have their shirts ready.
Got to get caffeinated.
That's right.
Yeah. Did I hit you with my bottle? I thought I did. I'm sorry. I thought I hit you in the head with that.
If you did, I didn't feel it.
Okay, well, then we're good.
There's nothing important in there.
I just made sure that, man, I just clocked him in the head with this metal bottle.
Maybe it was either that or you were just, I thought it was maybe your belly. You were just letting that truffle shuffle out. And you just smacked him with that. Knocked some sense into him.
That was before the truffle shuffle happened.
Oh, okay.
Just making stuff up.
But either way, I would love that,
Gosh.
Sean didn't feel it at all.
We got a
Unfazed.
show. We got review. We got articles.
That's right.
Of clothing coming off.
Blue Beetle doesn't entertain, but we sure will. Any way we can. Is that coffee good, though?
It's nice.
It is good.
It is good. Good taste. Delicious.
Is it Great Valley coffee?
No, it's actually. I need to get some better coffee. I need to start subscribing again to a different brand. I just been picking up store-bought, which is not great when you have a Techniform. I've been trying to pick up different ones here and there.
Get nice beans from nicer places.
See,
you don't have to buy it from Walmart or Kroger.
That's the
is supposed
problem.
to make crappy coffee still taste good, though.
And
this
it does.
tastes better.
It still does the trick there.
So what is this? Kroger, Walmart?
It's Kroger Premium or Private
Private Selection.
Yeah,
it's good.
They're not bad.
Coffee.
It's not terrible.
I mean, it's like, it's still a mass-produced, like, generic,
right.
but I mean, it's not bad. Like, it's not like Maxwell House.
No. I hate to say, I would never dare put that in my
Techniform.
It's good. No. It's not picked by starving kids in Colombia, though.
No, that's when you know it's fresh and it's good.
That's when you get good coffee, is when it's Colombian kids.
They inspect every bean. They know.
Walmart now sells Black Rifle coffee that you can go buy at Walmart, because I've been...
See,
the neighborhood market by my house doesn't have the beans. They only have ground, but the one on Outer Loop has the beans. Right. And I just haven't been willing to drive out there to get some because I don't want it pre-ground.
I don't want pre-ground, and I try to look at the date. And sometimes they cheat it. They don't tell you the date it was bagged.
Yeah.
They don't tell you the date it was roasted.
Oh, wow.
Or that's how they switch it. They tell you when it was bagged. They don't tell you when it was roasted. And that's the problem. Is when you buy store-bought, mass-produced coffee, you're getting it. It's probably been sitting there for a while. It doesn't tell you the roast date. And if you get something roasted and it's just been sitting there, it's stale, it's nasty, it's not as good.
I mean, if you don't trust the Black Rifle at Walmart, you can order directly from their website.
Well, and that's the thing.
It'd probably be fresher, I'm sure.
Well, normally they are. That's what I did with Sunnergass here in town, and Sunnergass was pretty good. I
would imagine if you go to their actual store, though, it would still be fairly fresh. Yeah,
it is. I ultimately was like, you know what? I want to try a different brand, a little bit more local. Sunnergass is not bad. It's just I never found a roast that was like, this is it. I got to stick with this one.
Yeah,
and I want to find one of those. I got to keep trying some new stuff and find one that just
you do.
See, I never want to stick with one. I always want to try something new. I mean, I do have ones I go back to because I like them.
Right.
But I never just like buy the same one over and over and over.
I want to find one that I know is a safe pick.
Oh, that you can go back to.
When I can go back to it and just say, if I'm not wanting nothing new right now, I just want to.
That makes sense. I tell you what, I was grocery shopping at Kroger the other day, and it really made me mad that they have this huge coffee aisle that went across from Upper Hunters with all these coffees, and half the thing is nothing but Starbucks. And I'm just like,
no, it's sad.
I'm just like, what is this garbage? And then you have a Starbucks like right there in the Kroger too that you could buy coffee at, and one like just down the road. And I'm like, why you take up half of this massive coffee shelf with Starbucks? Stupid.
I know. They buy the shelf space. That's just like Bud Light taking it up, but.
There is more varieties of Starbucks coffee in that Kroger than there is in the actual Starbucks in Dixie Manor, and I'm just like, this is dumb.
But the thing is just like Bud Light. It's like after a while, people get tired of it, and it just sits there on the shelf and goes bad. Then it's not worth anything.
There's more than I think just growing tired of it.
Oh yeah.
And that's all that had to be said about that. That's the end of the coffee conversation.
That's all we needed.
We got a great review
enjoying the coffee
of a movie. I'll say the review's great. I don't know
as always.
About the movie.
You're finally back to voicing it this week. I had to do.
I enjoyed it.
I
put a little extra something in it because I was doing it myself this time.
It's good. It definitely has Keith's flavor to it. Yeah. Good flavor.
It was a dumbass movie. Sorry, I just couldn't help it. I had to let it out.
No, I think that's appropriate. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it. I mean, like,
the review will explain it.
It'll speak for itself, and we'll do a deep dive like we always do. I mean, might as well just get it over with. Here is our review of the big one on the supposed big one on the block.
Hey, it came in number one at domestic box office.
It dethroned Barbie. That was
barely.
The story. That was the big story on the block this past week.
By like 4 million.
Yeah, and even then, it's like it still struggled to be. It's not a hit by any means.
Oh, it's one of their worst performing. So
here is our review of none other than Blue Beetle.
For one brief and glorious moment in the year that is 2023, we bore witness to some well-made movies. They've been scattered throughout the year, and even if you are amongst the naysayers regarding Barbie, one has to admit it gave cinemas a boon. But now we have reached the pinnacle of filmmaking. The Meg 2 didn't do it, but by the brilliance of DC Studios, the fourth best DC film ever made is now upon us. Blue Beetle. While managing to knock Barbie off the throne at the domestic box office, Blue Beetle has still managed to come and go with even less fanfare than DC's Shazam sequel and The Flash. Underperforming financially and receiving a lukewarm reception amongst critics, it still nonetheless has been touted as a fun film with heart and a focus on family. And while a focus on family is more or less correct, fun and full of heart isn't exactly how I describe Blue Beetle. Starring Zolo Maridueña as Jaime Reyes, who has a mysterious blue scarab thrust upon him while attempting to secure a job, the scarab attaches itself to Reyes, transforming him into the titular Blue Beetle. Reyes uses his newfound powers to protect his family, who are immigrants from Mexico, broadly implied to be here illegally. The evil White Rand Corporation, Cord Industries, under the leadership of Victoria Cord, played by Susan Sarandon, poor, dried up Susan Sarandon, hates Hispanics and wants to use the Blue Scarab to create an army of robotic exosuits to sell to the military so that she can continue to be white and rich and oppress minorities. And it's up to Jaime to protect his family and stop Victoria Cord. Luckily, Jaime finds an ally in Jenny Cord, Victoria's niece, who is the daughter of former head of Cord Industries and original holder of the scarab, Ted Cord, who has disappeared because he's white and not important, leaving the company to the evil and dried up Susan Sarandon. Dry Susan Sarandon. Directed by Angel Manuel Soto, Blue Beetle is a mess of a movie that does nothing to further anything coming in James Gunn's DCU. Somehow, still in a gray area that The Flash had been touted to make clearer, we still have no clear direction on what's staying and what's being cut, with Gunn stating that Superman Legacy will be the first DCU film, but Blue Beetle is its first DCU character. Whatever the hell that means. As the film is very self-contained, it would be easy to go any direction with it. The real question is, why would you want to? Blue Beetle is a generic cookie-cutter superhero origin story, with little redeeming substance. Character motivations, both heroic and villainous, are arbitrary and cliché, with the big bad rich white lady wanting money and power, and the good guys just wanting what's best for their family. The family angle was heavily touted and could have been done well, but even Reyes' family are shallow and played only for gags, with the few sentimental moments in the film either falling flat due to lack of true development or otherwise ruined by constant and inconsistent humor. Set pieces are okay, but nothing we've not seen outside of previous superhero films like Batman, Iron Man, and Ant-Man. The whole film is just lackluster, relying solely on comedy that may entertain some casual viewers, but won't convince most to get their butts in a theater seat. Add in a vibe that tries to merge 80s aesthetics and the golden era of comics, and you have a film that tries too hard to be serious at some times and completely campy and goofy at others. With atrocious performances from most of the cast, most egregiously from Sarandon, dry Susan Sarandon, and George Lopez, brain tumor-inducingly funny George Lopez. And Blue Beetle just has nothing at all to offer audiences or DC outside of the obviously diverse angle they play of a Hispanic family banding together, with the fact that they are Hispanic being more important than actually honoring or showcasing Hispanic culture and their familial bonds. Because hey, when you virtue signal, you don't actually have to care about the culture you claim to care about. Blue Beetle is just another unnecessary blip in the path to Gunn's new DCU, one that does more to lose people's faith in Gunn's direction than bolster it. I give Blue Beetle 1 out of 4 stars.
Alrighty, 1 out of 4 stars.
Like we cared so little about it that we just wanted to keep talking about another
I was
movie.
gonna talk about Guyver.
We were talking about
never
something
seen
completely different while that was going on.
I was just like, I'm not going to talk about this movie anymore. No, it was not a good movie.
No.
It actually does have a high rating amongst audiences. I'm not that surprised by that, I guess. I don't know. I mean, because it's got like 90-something, which again, that's an aggregate. It's an aggregate score on Rotten Tomatoes of audiences. But I mean, critically, it's 76, I think, and I side more with that score.
Yeah.
I give it 1.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
I might be in like the 60 percentile.
Yeah.
what did
yeah.
you give it, Sean?
Oh, it's 1.5.
You gave it 1.5.
Yeah.
I was debating. I think I settled on 1.5.
Oh, did you?
And honestly, I'm fine with 1. I think it deserves that as well.
I gave the Meg 2 1.5, and I actually enjoyed that more.
The Meg 2 was better.
Yeah, I enjoyed that more. So
I mean, I don't know if it was
the Meg 2 is at least entertaining.
it wasn't made
This movie
better.
was not
No,
entertaining.
everything about this movie was either generic or just poorly done, and I don't think it was. No, I agree. Meg 2 was way worse as far as how it was made and acting, and I guess it was so bad in parts that I could still be entertained by it. Whereas this, I was just like, everything about it was like it had no identity other than the shtick of this is a Hispanic superhero.
Yeah.
And even they said that they were hoping that this movie would be to Latino superheroes what Black Panther was for black people, and what Shang-Chi was for Asia. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I like Shang-Chi, so I won't say, but I mean, the fact is you make a good movie with the character, you don't try to set out to be like, well, Latinos have no good, solid superhero in film, so we're making this for them. I mean, I don't care that he's Latino, but the movie itself just wasn't well made. And like I said in the review, every aspect of their culture was just very shallowly portrayed in the movie. And like I said, it's like you don't actually have to care about the culture when you're virtual signaling because, hey, look, we represented them. It's like, yeah, but the religious aspects, because they bring it up enough in this movie about like the afterlife and this and that. They don't touch anything outside of, well, we kind of believe there's an afterlife. It's like, that's not true to their culture. And how they... just a lot of it, I thought how it was portrayed was just very generically, hey, give us a pat on the back because we made a movie about Hispanic people. I'm like, I'm sorry, I've seen better movies about Hispanic people.
Yeah.
Coco was the first one I
Coco
thought
was
of.
a great movie. I love Coco.
I immediately just thought throughout the whole, I don't even know what you would call this. I wouldn't even say it was an adventure because there were a couple parts where I dozed off.
It was very cookie cutter.
And it was also in the action-oriented scenes. Like, I didn't miss any plot. It was the scenes that were just lackluster in terms of being entertaining, which is why you would go see a superhero film, is actually seeing set pieces that kind of blow your mind. Look, we've been in the realm of ridiculous over-the-top superhero films, one outdoing the other, for quite a while now. However, and we've seen just nothing but CGI, eye candy, craze fests on screen, that they've gotten to the point where they are lackluster, that when you go see an Oppenheimer, you're like, wow, actual authentic, realistic effects make a difference. And this one just was a perfect example of how just CGI-ridden anything in Hollywood is made, especially these superhero films, and how often they're churned out.
It's funny because
how poorly it can add to the film.
I didn't think, like, compared to like some of
it actually subtracts.
Compared to some of Marvel's recent outings, like with how just fake this, like I thought the CGI in this didn't look necessarily fake, but I thought the designs they chose for everything were bad.
Yeah.
I'm like the CGI itself, I was like, it could have been a little better in places and such, but I didn't think it looked like cartoonish like Marvel's done recently. But
True.
then I was like, while the CGI I don't think is terrible in that regard, all of the designs you chose, whether they're directly from the comic book or not, because some of them are, but I'm just like, you still have to update it in a way that it looks tangible in live action, and a lot of it just looked bad.
And I agree. It's not necessarily the quality as much as it was, there was nothing new they did.
No.
Everything you've seen.
Well, that's what we were talking about in the review, is all the stuff it reminded us of.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And the quality was better than The Flash, which was the most recent DC EU, whatever. I mean, that was their most recent outing, and that was supposed to be their huge turning point movie, and that looked like garbage.
Yeah.
The CGI on that was atrocious.
It was pitiful for what it was supposed to be, a AAA title.
Intentional.
Right.
Yeah, sure. But the other problem that I have is kind of going back to the Coco comment. I mean, you talk about a movie that is saturated in the Hispanic culture, primarily Mexican culture, and a movie that does it so well and hits the nail on the head in portraying that, and also those familial ties and bonds, but then doing it in an emotional way that is something not only memorable, but something I would absolutely happily revisit.
Right.
Back before Pixar went downhill.
It's like, and even Encanto wasn't a great movie, but it still had...
It was better, yeah.
It had that culture and that
was
feel to it, but more
Disney
than this.
animation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I think was just Disney, but yeah, Coco, like Encanto didn't, but Coco, brings a tear to my eye. Like that was just, it's a very well done family. That's the thing when they talk about how this movie is family oriented and it really portrays, this family unit and how important that is to like Mexican families. And I'm like, but it doesn't. Not in the way that Coco did. Like when you watch Coco, like the whole emphasis of that movie is about family. And the family's in this movie, and they are supporting characters throughout the entire movie, but they're all cliches or generic
stereotypes.
They have stereotypes. They have no real depth to them, in my opinion, other than to all be comedic relief. And I'm like, you don't need 5 comedic relief characters. I know that's just way too many.
George Lopez was enough.
Yeah, he was more than enough.
He was more than enough.
And he was in 90% of the movie. I was like, I could not believe how much George Lopez is tagging along.
Now the trailers kind of make it appear that he's going to be just that comic relief, that he's going to be the crazy uncle that shows up every now and then, but the fact that he followed, what was that?
Just a car.
Oh, a car. Good Lord.
It's about to come through the studio. George Lopez driving his taco
truck. That's right. But yeah, to have him follow through the entire film and just rant through most of the film and scream and just act like an idiot. Like, I thought, when I say stereotypes, that he was the biggest stereotype, because he was this border jumping crazy uncle that believes in all these government conspiracies and thinks all the cameras are watching him and all this weird stuff. And I'm like, that to me, that was very stereotypical. And then the grandmother was also, it's like, of course, every Hispanic family's got to have a rebel guerrilla warfare grandmother or whatever. I'm like, this is like so, like, I don't know.
It just, there were so many
sitting there in his jumpsuit.
There were just so many stereotypes that were overdone. They weren't even stereotypes. They were just caricatures
and cliches
that they created for this film, that they went well beyond what they should have, to the point of a ridiculous, like, you're rolling your eyes when you see it. I'm not laughing. I'm just thinking, this is stupid.
All the bad guys are white people.
I saw somebody on Twitter mention specifically that this would have been a fine superhero film maybe 5-6 years ago. And I'm like, no, even further back. I would have put this at, like, to me, this reminded me of, like, the
this was like the Daredevil era, Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
The Fantastic Four is the first thing.
Well, that's still time period. Same time period, though. Yeah,
but
early
like,
2000s superhero film.
Films were awful for the sake of them trying to churn out superhero films after the success of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and they really did not hit their stride again until You could maybe argue some of the X-Men in there, but they really lost their way when Last Stand came out.
The first two X-Men movies were,
right. You don't really get to a successful period till Iron Man and the start of the MCU.
Yeah.
And so this film, just on all fronts, I feel like literally there were two things I liked about the movie. Was the music. I didn't mind some of the Hispanic music that they did incorporate. It was a little bit more modern in terms of, you typically hear the mariachi band sound when they do Hispanic culture.
Yeah.
No, it seemed like this director actually had a handle on real popular, whether it was pop music or country.
He is,
right.
Hispanic, so
No, yeah, but I'm like, most of the time you see Hispanic directors, they kind of return to their roots of showing you like the real, I think, old school classic Hispanic stuff, whereas this is more of a modern take.
And then you got Vince Neil.
Yeah.
With Motley Crue.
That was randomly thrown in there.
Yeah.
But then the other thing that I liked was the one woman, she was nice on the eyes. I don't even know her name. It's her first major role.
She played Jenny Cord, the daughter of Ted Cord.
Maria?
It's Maria something.
Yeah, I gotta look it up. I don't want to butcher it.
I don't remember. I had to look up plenty of names and I didn't look that one up for the review. I just never named her. Yeah. Well, after I had the Zolo Maridueña, I was just like, okay, that's enough for me.
I'm not
knocking people's names. That's just
it was Bruna. Sorry, Bruna Marquezine. I don't know.
Yeah, he can't say that.
You're probably saying it wrong.
Yeah. Marquezine. I don't know.
But yeah, no, it's funny to me because I was thinking about this because you even mentioned how the bug ship, the
Beetlemobile,
it looked like the like from Watchmen, and which is funny because that actually Watchmen was inspired by that because Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, a few characters were actually owned by Charlton Comics a long while back, and DC had bought. They went bankrupt, out of business, and DC paid like $5,000 per character for certain characters, and Blue Beetle, the Atom, and Peacemaker were some of those characters. And originally, when Alan Moore was going to write the Watchmen, he was going to use the Charlton Comics characters, and that story was going to be about those characters.
Yeah.
But the Watchmen story, and then when DC thought about it a little bit more, they were like, well, this is a finite story, and once you do this, that's done. And we just paid for these characters. We kind of would like to use them more in the future. So then he just changed and made all the characters in the Watchmen kind of like based on. So like,
but the Atom is in the Watchmen, isn't he?
No, that would be Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan.
Dr. Manhattan was based on the Atom. Night Owl was based on Blue Beetle, and that's like his owl ship.
That's
looks
his
like
owl ship. Yeah.
Ozymandias is based on Thunderbolt, a character called Thunderbolt. So I thought that was kind of cool that they did that. But then it's like now
some of these characters are now, because I would say Blue Beetle, Thunderbolt, aren't they coming out?
No, the Thunderbolts is Marvel. That's completely different.
Never mind.
That's a group of characters. Yeah, it's
gotcha.
They all. If you look back and forth, because I mean, the original Captain Marvel is Shazam until DC didn't copyright the name, and then Marvel made Captain Marvel, and then now they call him Shazam. So there's all kinds of back and forth between the two companies.
They were still in identities.
Well, they all work
right.
for each other. Steve
Right.
Ditko, who co-created Spider-Man with Stan Lee, or mostly made Spider-Man, depending on who you ask, is the creator of Blue Beetle for Charlton Comics, and then who's now bought by DC. Steve Ditko worked for several comic companies. So yeah, they all, and Jack Kirby, he worked for DC and Marvel. They call Marvel the house that Jack built, but he also did the New Gods, which is where Darkseid, the main villain in Justice League, that was from Jack Kirby.
Wow.
So
well,
they all
I'm glad we have him. He knows all this stuff.
He's our brainiac when it comes to the comic books material. But ultimately, this did not enthusiastically make me excited yet again. Look, it's gonna take a lot for both MCU and DCU films to bring me back into wanting to see what comic book superheroes can do for me, because after the failed attempt, and look, we walked away praising The Flash. We enjoyed it. It wasn't a good reboot, quote unquote.
Right.
It wasn't this like, oh wow, monumental restart to something we were supposed to get.
The CGI
from Gunn.
was garbage, but it was a good movie.
But it was a good movie, especially with the expectations we had going into it.
Yeah.
But the problem is Gunn's. We're going to get into it a little bit with the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a problem now, simply because this is now the fourth flop in a row in DCU's, kind of relaunch.
But I mean,
phase.
in his defense, though, well, I mean,
third, really.
what he
'cause I
would
think
use
it's
in
the
his
fourth.
defense. This movie wasn't done under his reign, though.
Which is true, but then he wants to say that this character is going to continue on in the
Right.
DC, because he said
No.
Superman Legacy is I mentioned in the room, is the first DCU movie, but Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, and I'm like, what does that even mean? How is this movie not the first DCU movie, but this actor and these characters are all going
It's
to
kind
continue
of like
over?
saying, well, Iron Man was the first in the MCU, but Captain America is the first Avenger. Like,
But his movie didn't come first. That's fine.
He
with
came
that, I
first,
guess.
though. I guess so. That's what I don't understand.
I don't really know what he means
Yeah.
by that, or if this
Well-
here's my thing: if this completely flops, I kind of feel like they're just like, never mind. It's
Yeah.
not a part of the DCU.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where it brings into question Wonder Woman and Aquaman, because we are still supposedly getting Aquaman 2.
yeah, it comes out this
Now,
December.
a third Wonder Woman movie is up in the air, but is he gonna? What pisses me off about these movies is right before the release of every one of them, he doubles down on the fact that they're going to be a part of his new DC universe,
I
and
think
I'm
we
like,
should just roll the headline open and get into it.
Yeah, because we're going there anyway.
I mean, look, our opinion on Blue
There's
Beetle.
not much else to say about Blue Beetle.
Yeah, don't go
We
see
didn't like it, and we were like, it's a passable movie. It's like
Yeah.
you don't need to watch it.
I mean, I think some people will like it because obviously they do on Rotten Tomatoes. But if you're tired of the generic DC crap, then yeah, that's just more of the same.
So
Yeah.
let's just
All right.
talk about James Gunn and the whole. The whole shebang.
let's roll that open.
Let's roll that beautiful bean.
Yeah,
It's the first time in like a year that you haven't said that.
I'm telling you, man. I screwed myself up on
Wow.
that. I'm the one hitting the button.
You hit the button too quick.
Yeah.
Premature.
So let's talk about it. Gunn's DCU misstep after misstep so far. Again, I agree with you, Sean. To a degree, you can sit here and say these were already planned. Shazam 2, The Flash,
They were
Blue
already
Beetle. These were already in production. These were already movies that were coming out before Gunn took the helm last fall. However, when we had movies like Black Adam come out that flopped, but
Yeah.
reintroduced Cavill, and Gunn had already only been at the helm for a couple of months at that point.
Yeah.
With I keep forgetting the Saffron.
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 Yeah, Peter
Pete
Saffron.
Saffron.
He, him and his partner have been running the gambit since then, and yet they were the ones that telling us, no, Henry Cavill's not gonna return as Superman. Shazam 2 is still technically canon. Flash is gonna bring forth a big turning point.
Things will make more sense after the Flash. No, they don't.
And then of course Blue Beetle. It's like we're left still wondering what is the rhyme or reason for having these films, and how are they going to add up? And I agree with kind of a sentiment that Keith brought up before the show started, which is we don't need any more Mystique. We want a freaking plan.
Yeah.
I'm tired of having to go and try to spend hard-earned money seeing these films and trying to make them successful when there's no roadmap here. There's no reason for us to have any faith in what they're
It's funny
planning.
too that like Marvel on the flip side of things, they laid out their cards and said, "Here's all the movies coming out through 2030 or however far out they showed us. Like, here's the plan." But even then, none of it still fits or makes any sense.
Yeah,
like we
nobody
still
knows.
have no idea. But at least they laid their cards on the table and said, "Here's what we're planning. Here's the next 2 Avengers movies."
Well, I guess
like
you
all
could
this
say
stuff.
Gunn kind of did because he did announce what movies were coming out, but that doesn't tell you what. Like at least with Marvel, like you said, they give you the Avengers movies of Secret Wars is coming, whether you know what that is or not. At least you know that's what this is supposed to be building to.
Yeah.
With Gunn, it's like he said Superman Legacy, Batman, the select couple movies he announced, but. And that it's supposed to be deemed God, like this chapter is called DC Gods and Monsters, and I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? What is this story what is the story? Nobody knows, and nobody knows how these older films are fitting into it, because I personally feel like at this point, you asked Cavill, we know Batman's going to be a new actor. It's like, why are we keeping some actors, losing others? Like I think it should just be a clean reboot.
Yeah.
But I feel like they didn't want to do that, or at least announce a clean reboot, because then how do you convince people to go see these movies if they're not going to matter at all? It's like, well, we're releasing Blue Beetle, The Flash, Black Adam, Aquaman. If we just announce a clean reboot that has no connection, then those are 4 movies that people have no reason to see.
And a lot of this is also on the backs of the announcement that they weren't keeping Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the I think the thing that's ticked people off the most.
Well, I think it's the one thing that's made people less enthusiastic, because it's like, okay, on one hand, fine, Black Adam was a flop, financially, but as far as I think fans go, just like they had even in the Snyderverse.
People liked it.
There were people who enjoyed it. It wasn't a bad movie. We praised it, fairly decently here when we reviewed it. But then you have the big reveal at the end of the movie with Cavill and him returning and him going on social media right before.
Everybody was so excited.
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They were like, it's going to happen. It's coming back. So then to just burst everybody's bubble, which, again, if you had a plan from the start, makes sense to do it early on and not get people's hopes up. The problem is, here we are almost a year later. We know that Cavill's not coming back, and we've had so many different mixed bag of quotes from Gunn on social media. There's, let's go back to, this was December of last year. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages of our story, we'll be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. Then you had some people responding. This is also in December. James Gunn, when you show us the movie coming out, will you explain why Cavill is getting recast, please? As I said yesterday, it's very simple. He's a different age. Later on, still the month of December, you said it will... You said what it will be. Him meeting people for the first time is an origin story. How much did Disney pay you to screw over the one thing DC has going for it? He's not meeting major characters for the first time either. He's merely younger. So already he's declassifying, okay, there is no, this isn't an origin story for Superman. He's not super young, but he's still using that term younger.
He's younger than Cavill.
And younger than Cavill, who at this point, 40 years old, it's like, okay, maybe 20s? Yeah. To me, that's how much younger you'd have to get.
I think Screen Rant, I saw an article where they were speculating that this Superman's supposed to be in his 20s, but I don't know.
But no confirmation from Gunn.
I think the
just
actor's
saying
older
younger
than that, though, that he did end up hiring.
No, yeah, he is. He's 30.
Yeah,
which we'll get to who
which,
that is.
I guess you could play someone in your 20s.
He looks young.
Yeah,
So,
This was March of this year. True or not is what somebody is asking, and it was casting in. Oh, let me see. It's Spanish, so I can't read it.
El Camino.
Yeah. And then he said, untrue. We haven't begun casting other than making lists, and it's not limited to people in their 20s. Okay, so that opened it up to it's not going to be in his 20s. It could be even younger. Maybe at this point, it could be teenagers.
He's going to be in his 30s. That's still younger than Cavill, okay?
Right. Then we get to, okay, accurate. They are not only both incredible actors, but also wonderful people. This was the drop of who is playing. We have Rachel Brosnan,
yeah.
and David Cornsweet.
I
guess that's it.
It's Cornsweet,
but he's 30 years old. She's a little bit older. I know her from House of Cards, and
he was
in
in Pearl. He was the projectionist in Pearl.
He's
a good actor. He is a good actor.
Yeah,
it's just funny because he looks a lot like Henry Cavill, and it's like, so you went with an actor. And granted, I do think he's a good actor, and he could probably play Superman well.
Or did Cavill just look that much like Superman?
Both, I think. No. Honestly,
same with this guy.
Both, like they both have the generic Superman look, which is what you want.
But basically, it's funny that look is based on Christopher Reeves.
Yeah,
the comic book too, but I'm saying
I agree.
Henry Cavill has a lot of the same facial features that Christopher Reeves had.
Chiseled, defined jaw.
And I just think because I even think the guy that played him in Superman Returns, what was his name?
Brandon
Routh. I thought he had a little bit of those features too. He actually, to me, looks more like Superman than this new guy. But I'm just saying. I think Henry Cavill was the one. But
I think a lot of people were arguing the same thing.
Yeah.
And we've had moments where even within the failed Snyderverse, that was the one bright spot was that we had Cavill as Superman.
Yeah.
But after those actors were confirmed, we then went on. Other people were asking him on social. So is Blue Beetle at least in the commercial in Blue Beetle, at least in the commercial, Hami?
His name.
I hate it because
the Blue Beetle.
Jamie in English knows who Superman is, and you said Blue Beetle is in your DCU. So is your young Superman movie set in the past? I was never making a young Superman movie, just a Superman movie, is how James Gunn replied.
See, I think that's deflection.
Oh, it absolutely
I don't think he ever... I agree. I don't think he ever said he's making a young Superman movie. I think he's pointing out the fact that
he's younger.
This Superman is younger than Cavill's Superman.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's where everybody's arguing is how much younger do you have to see Superman to make a difference between who Cavill already was playing as Superman, and also what kind of story is this that it all adds back to, without there being any projection of what the vision is. I know he wants to leave some kind of, appetite for what's coming, and he wants you to stay hungry. The problem is when you're releasing the films that you are with no clarity on where this is headed, having already recast your central character that is Superman, who was a fan favorite, and yet you're not getting butts in the seats, you have, again, we're back to DC disarray. You have people who are like, I'm not showing up and I'm not participating in this universe you're even trying to get off the ground until we have an idea as to what's coming. Because you're replaying all of these people who were already in the slate of characters that apparently you were supposed to wipe the slate clean by getting rid of Cavill, and yet you've not gotten rid of anybody else. Instead, you've doubled down and said, no, they're all staying. Gal Gadot's staying. Jason Momoa is staying. Blue Beetle, who's a flop,
they even said
a certified flop, is
that
staying.
they would work with Ezra Miller again. So it's like, so is he still going to be the? Because here's the thing.
Talk about the
And
controversy.
and he has the most legal issues.
Having a younger Superman's one thing, but he shouldn't be younger than the other main Justice. I mean, yes, younger than Wonder Woman, who's thousands of years old.
Sure.
But I mean, it's like, yeah, like he shouldn't. Like if Jason Momoa is still Aquaman, who is the same age as Henry Cavill, if Ezra Miller, like Superman should be older than Blue Beetle, who is supposed to be a kid. Ezra Miller, I'd argue, is still too young for the Flash, but that's or looks it. I mean, I don't know his real age. I think he's in his 30s, but it's one of those things where like Superman's not like supposed to be this brand new superhero when all these other heroes are established. I mean, maybe Batman. Batman was supposed to be one of the first,
right?
But other than that, it's like Superman came next, so it's like he shouldn't be younger than the Flash or Aquaman or other characters. Yes, he should be older than Blue Beetle and characters who are supposed to be more teenaged. So I don't really know what they're going for here because it's going to be weird to me. It's like I don't want to have a Superman who's kind of a rookie. I mean, I know that's not what he's saying. He's just saying younger. But, I mean, I don't want a rookie Superman and a seasoned Aquaman. That just doesn't feel right to me. Like, Superman should have the same kind of vet status as some of these other heroes, especially being an icon who's supposed to be the symbol of hope that they all look up to.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I mean, it's ultimately the same fatigue that I've gotten from the MCU at this point is...
You get tired of being jerked around, yeah.
Yes, and I'm not looking forward to anything coming out, and to me, that's really hard to sell me on looking forward to new projects when I'm not enthusiastic at what I've already seen, and yet I understand these projects technically were already in the works with you at the helm, coming to the helm, a year ago. But it still has not given me any kind of clarity as to where this is going or how these projects even intertwine or how these characters can continue in the same universe.
Well, the only one left now is Aquaman 2. And again, it's like, where does it fit in? Not at all, probably.
Well,
it's just...
and it also doesn't help because, and this is something where, again, James Gunn could come out and course correct very early. But unfortunately, you're going to be lumped in with Marvel because they're your direct competitor. Mm-hmm. And Marvel's misstep, as we've all outlined on this show multiple times, has been the fact that they always pump up the next big release. They know how to pitch and sell and market whatever the next major Marvel property is. Whether it's on Disney Plus and it's freaking the crap that we just finished with
Secret
Invasion,
yes,
or the next big movie that's coming out. They know how to try to pump you up the excitement, and they always said for several installments, this is going to be crucial. You need to see this to know what's coming next in the MCU and the direction we're headed.
Yeah.
And every time, it was a lie. It was a flat-out lie. It had no more clarity than the previous installment or whatever movie or show you watched. And it wasn't keeping you up to date with, ooh, yeah, I'm really intrigued at what's coming next. By symbiosis of being a comic book franchise, DCU has got the same problem. And James Gunn, no amount of prep and him getting out there and steamrolling the idea of, oh, yeah, you just wait till the next movie. It's going to get you excited for what's coming, or it's going to be the next big reveal. Flashpoint was that moment that it was hinging on. And the fact that it didn't give any clear direction as to where we were going to go with James Gunn's DCU, it's completely, up to this point, Superman Legacy is it.
Yeah.
And we're still, 2 years away from that.
Maybe more because of the strikes now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think it was supposed to be 2025. I could be wrong, but
it was slated for 2025.
Okay.
But yeah,
but I mean, yeah, we don't. If they're not doing anything on it because of the strikes, it could be longer. And I just. Part of me feels like, and I think this would piss fans off too, because it would be like another slap in the face. But part of me also wonders is once Aquaman 2 comes out and they've finally gotten through the slate of movies that were already in production, and with all of them being flops now, part of me feels like at some point, after a little time has passed, do Gunn and Safran come out and be like, well, actually, we're just going to go with the clean slate and everything from Superman Legacy on, because they can't do it before because they got to get butts. They want to hopefully get people to still go see those movies. So are we just going to bury the lead and not mention it's a clean slate until after
it's crazy because
those movies have come out?
That hasn't worked because we've seen flop after flop.
Yeah.
And two, then how do you make sense of them pulling something like Batgirl that they said was completely unreleasable?
Yeah,
and
why not just scrap them all and do tax write-offs?
Exactly.
Yeah.
At this point, that's what I don't understand. They're in that boat right now because this was $25 million. Oh, every article is coming out and saying it beat Barbie. It took 5 weeks for Barbie to fall to number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And it was
you're talking about a $200+ million movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
That made $25 million its opening
It's
weekend.
a flop.
No, yeah.
And
There's
it's not going
no
to-
way it's gonna. Gran Turismo opens up next
Yes.
week, and you can sit here and say, "Oh, that's not stiff competition." At this point, it might be.
It might be, and then you still have movies that are out that are still doing well. Yeah, Barbie dropped from number 1 to the domestic box office, but it still came in number 2. Oppenheimer still came in number 3. It's like those are still competitive movies because let's face it, I wouldn't be surprised if they both overtake Blue Beetle after its opening weekend. The people who saw it and wanted to see it have already seen it. I don't think Blue Beetle is going to do any better than it did this weekend.
Right.
So it's going to end up plummeting at the box office in the following weeks. And then after that, I just feel like, yeah, you have stiff competition, whether it's Gran Turismo or I know there's several other things coming out, but I just really don't see, like, that's it.
I don't think the positive word of mouth and the positive cinema score that it's received are going to be. I mean, I really do think the only people who are watching this are either fans of the comics or just hoping to, again, see the. I mean, it's interesting because you may have people that have already seen this and are rating it on Rotten Tomatoes and giving it a positive score. But and honestly, I haven't looked. I'd have to see how many ratings there were.
It says over 1,000, but I'm like, I mentioned this
unverified
before.
or verified.
It says verified,
Okay.
but I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, is this a case of, because I think a lot of people, like, I think most people are just indifferent towards Blue Beetle. And if that's the case, maybe the only people rating it on Rotten Tomatoes are the ones that liked it.
Exactly.
And I mean,
That's what I'm
and you
thinking.
can make any excuse you want. People are like, well, you're just making, like, I don't know. I am making that. But at the same time, it's like.
We also know it's not beyond Rotten Tomatoes to do one of these things where they've done in the past and they outright exclude certain reviews that are review bombing,
Yes,
quote unquote.
they take out the ones that are review bombing, but then you also, I noticed it with, I mentioned Little Mermaid and a few others. You have
Mermaid?
Yeah, Mermaid. Well, that's what it is. Little Mermaid. But I also noticed that you can see on their reviews that literally it will just give it 5 stars and be like, this is amazing because of this political statement or this. And I'm like, are these real reviews either?
Yeah, no.
It's like you could say
that's not
all,
a movie review.
You
That's
could
a
say,
review of the politics.
yeah, if you
involved.
put in like, oh, this movie's awful, 0 stars, and they'll say, well, that's review bombing, and we gotta get rid of that review. But then the ones that are 5 stars that also don't seem like anybody watched the movie, they're only giving it 5 stars for. It's like, how is that also not fake reviews?
Yeah.
No, absolutely, 100%. And especially in the case like this, where almost all of the mainstream media outlets who reviewed this film positively, they could not underscore the Hispanic cultural aspect enough, and that was that was overtly in the article to praise the film. And I'm like, when your film is resting on the laurels of its PC or woke cultural aspect, and that's where you're really hoping to get a lot of the eyeballs and attention. I mean, even in the Variety article that we linked to, specifically about it being number 1, they're coming up with excuses of like, well, it probably didn't do well in Southern California because they had the tropical storm coming in, and you've got before that it's also a pandemic.
Didn't do good in Hawaii either.
It's
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
they would use that as an excuse.
Exactly. It's excuse after excuse. And it gives them a blanket reason to say, well, this may not. And even they'll come back with, well, it's probably because people are racist that they don't want to see this. That's ultimately the reason. And it's just sickening because it
I'm sure
doesn't
that's why
allow.
I hate it, so.
We clearly heard your review, Keith. We know why you hated it.
I loved Coco. I'm like, give me an actual movie about the actual culture that's not browbeating, and
But
I'll
that's
like
the thing.
it.
It shouldn't be.
And no George Lopez.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think George Lopez ruined it for me.
I would
completely.
agree.
I mean, it might have been a 2-star movie for me if George Lopez wasn't in it. I thought his character was just
it was cliche and bombastic in terms of. I told you all this walking out of the theater, and when I say bombastic, I don't mean in a good way. In a way, an action film should be.
Yeah, like RRR.
Yes, that was
yeah.
fantastic. That was actually entertaining. It was bombastic in the sense that it was loud and obnoxious in parts where it was trying to be comedic, and it wasn't. The overtones were not there. They were cliche at best, and ultimately, this is an issue I think I have as a broader whole of this cultural funk we're in with movies, and there's just no subtlety. I noticed this with Oppenheimer. There were things like I just recently, just for kicks and giggles, I was wanting to watch something I'd already seen before, and I was tired. I threw on The Prestige, and I'm sitting here, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, there's some more little subtle notes, story driven wise, that are just done not only by the characters' interactions with each other and even the dialogue. It's just not in your face. We're going to tell you the plot beat and the plot point. And I think of the scene in the movie that we just reviewed last week with the Meg. Or no, was it the Meg? No, it was this one. It was Blue Beetle. It was.
There's been multiple.
It is. It's everything. If we literally had the time, I could sit down with almost every major release this year and pinpoint moments.
Yeah,
in the
moments
film.
that can go unspoken, but they have to. Like, It's like you don't have to tell us what's obviously there already.
And that I think is what makes me kind of irritated looking back on even Oppenheimer. And I expressed my piece on this show that I was not a huge fan of Oppenheimer, but one thing that I appreciated about Nolan was he didn't treat his audiences like they were stupid. And he didn't spoon feed you the info. Whereas this one definitely felt lackluster compared to other ones he's done. And in this one, there's a scene specifically where the suit has its own personality, but he's taking down one of the bad guys that has another suit on. And he literally is in the moment of the suit tries to stop him from going too far and killing him, and he goes, I've downloaded his memories. Here, let me show you.
Yeah.
And then it goes through a litany of just freaking exposition vomit about how we should now suddenly care
Feel
about
sorry
this.
for this
and
bad
feel
guy.
sorry.
Yeah.
So it's not only completely forced in that way, but the fact that the freaking suit has to say, by the way, I downloaded his memories. I'm going to throw in this plot device that I haven't mentioned before and have not used once, and I'm going to use it as a story element here. It is just so lazy and terrible writing, and I'm sick of it. And it is infested over the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years. Yeah, you have your certain gems that stick out, but it's just like that old trope that was playing out in trailers for the longest time, and it's still kind of going on. They would take like an old favorite song and they'd remix it with a current artist and have them sing it in a different way.
Yeah.
Now they've taken like the same song and they'll remix it, but it's still like in the latest trailer, the creator
with
they have the
Dream On.
Aerosmith playing Dream On, but they actually just
laugh.
remix it with like sound effects. At least it's still using the Aerosmith track.
Yeah.
Whereas like it used to be a terrible cliche trailer trope back in like the mid 2000s, where they would remix an old classic song with a new artist, and it was awful. And now I feel this way with story beats and with subtlety. No freaking movie has subtlety anymore, and it's killing.
Honestly,
killing the movies.
Hollywood just thinks audiences, like, if you want to know what Hollywood thinks of the common person that they say they're in touch with, they honestly think we're ignorant. One of the producers for The Witcher had said as such. It's like, we had to change certain plot elements from The Witcher for American audiences so that they would understand it. And I'm like, I've read the books. I understand it just fine. Thanks for thinking that we're a bunch of ignorant jackasses.
Yep.
I'm just like, no, people are not as... some people are stupid. I'm sorry, they are. But generally, audiences will understand your movie. You don't have to think every single one of us are too dumb that you have to spoon feed us every point of your plot. It's just annoying, and it is. It does not make for a good movie. I hate watching movies.
I think it's shown that it's turning audiences off.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a huge movie or a movie that's supposed to be huge, like Blue Beetle, for instance, that only rakes in $25 million, and is probably not going to make its budget back for a long time. I feel like that's something that audiences are obviously responding to in a negative way. It's like even though people went out to see this movie, I guarantee you it's going to be another movie where word of mouth is going to get around, and the second weekend is going to be way worse than the first. And I can see this having a 40 or 50% drop off. So it's just one of the, and
that would actually be good.
They'll blame it on they'll blame it on the movies that are coming out this weekend. But I'm like,
it's really just Gran Turismo.
Yeah,
I think the only one that it's going to give it any kind of competition.
Mm-hmm.
And here's
I
the
bet
thing.
it drops 60% or more.
You're okay.
You think 60?
Yeah. Well,
Keith
40
is
is
banking
actually
on
not bad. Most so I'm going with 60.
Wow. I'm actually with Sean on this one. I actually think it'll probably be around 50.
50.
I think
Okay.
I think it's going to do surprisingly well, just considering. When I say considerably well, I don't. Obviously, it flopped already. It's 25 million on opening weekend is terrible, and we don't ever see it surge the other way around
Here,
unless it's something like
I'll
Sound
hedge
of
my
Freedom.
bet slightly. 58 or worse.
But no, I do think because you have, even with positive buzz from certain audiences, I think, like you said, Keith, audiences who have already been enthusiastic about seeing this movie or wanted to go see it have already seen it.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a cultural phenomenon like Barbie where it launches and, again, it doesn't have any... I mean, that was the issue with The Flash even. It was like we already knew it was a side character, but really after the movie launched, we realized, oh, nobody cares about this character.
Yeah. No.
And that's also a big issue going forward. Looking at Superman Legacy, it's like you had Shazam, The Flash, Blue Beetle. Literally, Aquaman is the only character this entire year that it maybe has any kind of pull to get other casual audience goers to come back to the theater for a comic book film, at least in the DCU.
And it might do it, but at this point, it's been so long since the first, and people have lost so much trust in DC that I do wonder. Plus, you still have the diehards that refuse to see it if Amber Heard's in it. So I don't think that'll have as big an impact now that it's so far removed from that trial.
But I also think, too, that you are feeling the effects of people out of spite doing this to Gunn because of not only the firing of Henry Cavill, but because we don't have any clear direction as to where the DCU's going.
Well, the Snyder fans aren't going to see anything Gunn does either. So
I saw it. So, and Gunn didn't have anything to do with Blue Beetle. But
No.
still, it's like I don't want to give him the money anyway. And I'm a Snyderverse fan, as you all know. I think it's
Did you
far
like that
better
Rebel
than
Moon
anything.
trailer?
I did. I did like it.
I didn't know it was going to be 2 parts.
Yeah.
I knew there'd be more than one movie, but I didn't realize it was like.
Well, he can't do anything in 2 or 3 hours.
I
It's
just-
got to be 6
I
hours.
guess
That's the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
I think I thought he was going for like a Star Wars trilogy type thing, so I didn't realize like it was going to be like this 2-part movie, and I'm like, okay. And I think visually it looks amazing, but that's always Snyder's films.
Yes,
I want to see the substance. I
Sure.
want there to actually be some substance.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
The trailer doesn't give you a whole lot of that. The little monologue that you hear in the trailer is not enough.
To me, that's
But
always the problem, is that's the depth.
That's the depth.
Yeah.
Superman, Man of Steel trailer.
Yes.
Fantastic
Oh, man,
movie
I love-
trailer.
I was so
Got
excited.
my gut churning.
Knows how to hook
chills
you.
on my back. Like, yes.
I was like, man, this is going to be.
And I like the movie, but it wasn't nowhere near as good as what I thought it was going to be.
It's not
based on the
freaking,
trailer.
It's
original
not,
Superman.
Yeah, it's not
No.
Richard Donner's Superman.
No.
No.
Another one that we have to talk about, switching gears from DCU to another failed dynasty. I mean, it's
the Disney.
this one has been on the chopping block for a while with the several videos that have been circulating on social for the last few weeks.
Well,
Yeah.
none of them are doing themselves any favors.
No, and you gotta. I mean, you've got to ask yourself at some point, like, are they intentionally trying to sabotage themselves? They are trying
Do
to
you
shoot
just
themselves.
not want money? You just like, well, we don't want any of the money. We just like losing money.
We're just gonna write everything off.
Here's because we're of course talking about Snow White, and I mean, I think everybody at this point knows. I mean, Rachel Ziegler won't stay out of the headlines long enough to stop.
Dude, she's a liability
Yeah.
for Disney.
And I'm like,
She needs
okay.
to shut up.
Little Mermaid already flopped. It didn't make its money back. And that was without having, the cast and crew constantly browbeating people about how the original movie is racist or sexist, in Snow White's case, I guess. And now you have your main actors talking about how outdated and terrible the original movie. The movie that, by the way, the first first animated feature film ever, and the movie that, pretty much put Disney on the spot. I mean,
Disney,
Disney wouldn't be the company it is today. Like maybe, we don't know, but if that movie hadn't been the massive success it was, would Disney be what it is today? We don't know. So you're taking something that is the very core of what became Disney, something that is iconic to hundreds of people. They love this classic. I mean, I know it's Jacob's favorite Disney animated movie. It's not my favorite because I can't stand Snow White's voice, but I do love the movie. I love the dwarves. But it's one of those things that, it's like, so you're just going to crap all over it, say it's horribly outdated and evil. The dwarves are a terrible stereotype. The prince is a sexist stereotype. And then you still expect people to come see your movie after you've just trashed everything people love about the original.
Right. You're just completely mocking everything that is the legacy of the film. And yet you're supposed to be this bastion of at least being a beacon of, oh, hey, no, we're bringing honor back to this original tale, especially after the butchering that we've already seen and the low, steady decline of the other Disney remakes, live action remakes that they've had. We just saw the flop with Ariel in
Little Mermaid.
The Little
flopped
Mermaid.
hard. This movie's going to flop worse than that one.
Well, yeah. Because
Definitely.
at least that one had positive buzz surrounding it from
Well, at
all
least
of its
that
cast
one's
of
main
characters.
actress, Haley
Embraced the
Berry or
role?
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she was excited to play the character. She wasn't excited about them completely bastardizing the story.
Right. She was just excited to be Ariel.
I think that's what pisses me off the most about it, too, because she's not someone that I disliked because of her being an actress.
No.
It was because of the role she was playing. And it's the same as if anybody else put someone into a role that they were not written to be.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you doing this to that actor? You're setting them up for failure. And in this situation, it was the same with Rachel Ziegler. It's like you're picking what is she? I forget what her actual nationality is. I don't think it's Hispanic.
She's Latina.
Is she Latina?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm not sure. I just don't know. I don't know her.
Or Latinx, because Latino or Latina is that's sexist. So you got to
But it's
go,
the fact that you're picking Snow Brown to be Snow White, it doesn't make any sense. So you're already, and then you can't make the dwarves. So you got to make them real people, and then you're probably going to digitally go in and shriek them.
Yeah.
I knew what you meant, but I just had to say
the thing that she said that I really like, just I honestly can't believe it because of the costume being so iconic, is the one where she's in the dress and complaining about having to wear this dress for hours and all this stuff, and
she was doing this on the picket line, saying, "Well, if I'm going to get paid to be in a Disney princess dress, I'm going to get paid for every hour that I'm in that dress."
Yeah,
and it's a spoiled, rotten brat, narcissistic attitude. That is every bit of who she is in every interview that she's given on this topic, and almost in every single aspect you've seen her. She just seems like somebody who is just not a good person.
Entitlement.
And exactly.
Which is funny because they're the first ones to speak out against it. I'm like, no, you're not from another nationality. You're American. You were born here, and you're an entitled little shit just like most other Americans are.
I now have a problem because, see, I had to look up, and she's Colombian, but she's not really fully Colombian. She's actually half. Her mother was Colombian, but her father is Polish, so that makes her half white, and I don't think that's diverse enough. So I think they need to give her the boot because she's half white.
We just gotta jump on the bandwagon and boycott.
If they wanted to be diverse, they should have gone with a fully Colombian or Latina person. The fact that her father's Polish, I think that's too white for her to play anybody.
I think we need to go along with the woke crowd here and boycott the film because of that.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. They
just
should
don't go see it.
The live action Lilo and Stitch, they hired an actual Hawaiian person, but she was too white to play even though she was Hawaiian. So if that's wrong, then I feel like her having half Polish should eliminate her from whatever too.
But I do think it is interesting because we had the son of the original director of Snow White had an interview with the Telegraph, David Hand, who worked on the Disney designer he worked as a Disney designer in the 90s, and he admitted negative feelings towards the Snow White remake. Hand's father, also named David, served as one of the directors of the 1937 film. It's a whole different concept, and I just totally disagree with it. And I know my dad and Walt would also very much disagree with it. This is the 91-year-old Hand saying this. He continued on saying it's a disgrace and that Disney has radical thoughts. They're making up new woke things. I mean, this is a 91-year-old who
But
now
that's
has
what
woke in
people
their
would
vernacular.
say. But that's what people will say. The dude's 91 years old. He doesn't know any better.
He's outdated.
He's outdated.
No,
That's exactly what they would
It's the fact
say.
that you actually, there are still some elders who have more wisdom than you, and maybe you do owe them a sense of respect.
No. He lived in a time period. He's a racist.
That's what I'm
sexist
saying.
person.
It would be what's
That's
that
it.
line from the Clint Eastwood, The Mule, where Bradley Cooper's sitting at the bar
I've
with
not
him
seen
and
The
says,
Mule.
"You haven't seen The Mule?
No.
Oh, yeah. He's like
Last
sitting
one
at
I
the
saw
bar
was
with
Cry Macho.
Well,
Clint
The Mule was
Eastwood
before
says
the Cry
something,
Macho.
and he says like, "I love you old timers. You just don't have any filter, do you?"
Yep.
And that's what young people think of the elderly now is you're just an old fogey that doesn't have a filter. So you think you're from a time where you can say what you're from a time where we had freedom of speech. And now you're in the new world where there is no freedom of speech. And I think that's exactly what they would say about this guy is you're a 91-year-old man.
His mindset is
Yeah.
outdated.
Well, of
Your
course,
mindset is
that's
outdated.
exactly what woke
Yeah.
Hollywood would say, and that's why they're getting
they-
the backlash with not only people not showing up and putting the butts in the seats on these woke movies and not turning these
Yeah.
box office blockbusters into flops, but it's also the louder cry you're hearing from the common folk who are saying, no, we do have a voice and we'll vote with our dollar if we have to, because you're trying to shove this down our throats and we don't like it, and it doesn't respect the past or the history that not only we grew up on, but that you're completely directly spitting on in the face of.
Yeah.
And I just go on and continue finish his quote. He said, they're making up a new woke things, and I'm just not into any of that. I find it quite frankly a bit insulting what they may have done with some of these classic films. There's no respect for what Disney did and what my dad did. I think Walt and he would be turning in their graves.
And absolutely. And granted, they wouldn't care about that. Like, Disney won't come out and say it about their founder, but several people in Hollywood and several people I've seen on the left have talked about how, well, Walt was an anti-Semite and he was racist and it was this and that. And it's like, you say that because you don't agree with the points that he believed in, because those are outdated and antiquated. But it's like, no,
they can't separate any political views or
Yeah.
even certain black marks in people's histories, separate that from the overall good that someone's done.
Or even marks
It's
that
to paint
weren't
them
black
with
marks,
a
but they'll
broad,
act like it. Because
right.
Walt wasn't an actual anti-Semite. I mean,
Right.
but
Right.
they say that because
Yeah, it's just to paint them with a broad
Yeah.
stroke, to put them in a category to say they're irrelevant. Any opinions never mind this multi-billion-dollar company that was built on his back and the success that he brought, and also the millions of people that he's impacted in positive ways with these stories that he's created and the life of wonderment that he's brought to the world. Never mind all that.
Yeah.
We're 100 years developed now. We know better. And that's the thing. Yeah, you won't hear Iger coming out and admitting that this guy is right, or giving him a platform to speak on, or changing course. But trust me, it's hurting them every single step of the way. You could even see from the old, because kind of where I want to pivot back to is Rachel Ziegler. And a social media post resurfaced from what was done about a year ago, where she was talking about loving one another and hoping that there would be kindness. And it resurfaced because of the hypocrisy of her being on these, these press junkets and basically just ranting and raving in her radical feminist fashion, but then also to tie in the fact that she's bullied other people, including Gina Carano, who was fired from The Mandalorian because she didn't put pronouns in her bio. And then when she did, she was mocking the idea of pronouns. And now Rachel Ziegler's receiving all of this backlash. And of course,
love the tweet
she
she
was
sent
all about love, peace, and harmony when it came to anybody who aligned with her values.
Was a year ago. It was about the time West Side Story was in theaters, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm sure she was receiving backlash because there was probably a lot of Latina hatred from her being cast in that role. I can only imagine. Of course, I'm just making that up.
Yeah, I don't know why, because that role's supposed to be Latina.
Well, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No, I think because she was cast in West Side Story, which of course, I mean, that was an Academy Award winning, the original film.
Yeah.
And because it's Steven Spielberg,
But
and
they
now
also
she's-
whitewashed it in the original.
So you had. But the original still was an iconic film, so she got cast in the remake to work with Steven Spielberg, who's an iconic director, and now she's in a Disney film, which is an iconic company, doing Snow White, which is an iconic movie. And I think she thinks she's bigger than she is.
Oh,
she's like, oh, I was in this, which West Side Story was outside of The Oscars, nobody really gave a crap about the remake.
It flopped.
Nobody gives a crap about this movie. It's like the only people who consider those major big movies and her a big actress now are the Hollywood elite. And it's like, yeah, and her. It's like if Ariana DeBoy got more famous from West Side Story than Rachel Ziegler did. I guarantee you more people I know that if I asked them who Ariana DeBoy was, they would know her over Rachel Ziegler. They would just be like, oh, I think, was she the chick in West Side Story? If that. Like my sister
I
would
don't
go
think
with that
anybody
one.
would know either.
Yeah.
Because I think, honestly, Rachel Ziegler is only known by that role. They would know her face. They'd recognize her face.
They might
Not
recognize
know
her
by
face
name.
from West Side Story and be like, oh, was she the one in West Side Story? Be like,
Right.
yes, and that would be
But
the end
even
of it.
then, I still think you all are right. It's like she's given this platform and was put on this pedestal as the next it girl, and now she's just destroying it by not having any kind of, like, again, talk about no subtlety, but now we're also in this world of just you could say and feel whatever you think. And when you're in your own little bubble like Hollywood is, and they regurgitate this stuff day in and day out, they think, oh yeah, everybody agrees with me. We're all on the same page. And then when she puts it out there in the ether and she gets backlash like this, it's like, oh, poor pitiful me, I didn't know.
She gets a boop from
Gina Carano. But it's interesting because you have to wonder. She's been much more, let's just say, I don't want to say detained. I doubt Disney would do that. She's been more reserved over the last several days on social media and not made any headlines or new headlines in the sense of making any more comments.
Well, again,
and I have to believe
flop
that
after flop.
someone
Yeah.
has talked to her from Disney and said, hey, shut your mouth in the nicest way possible.
We need money. Shut up.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, she's ruining her own career by getting out there and presenting herself this way because it truly makes you just look like a spoiled, rotten brat.
Yeah.
You don't look like you're worth working around or that you're a nice person to work for. It immediately presents a liability for me thinking of another project for you because now I don't know if you're going to like my project or if you're just doing it for a paycheck or you're doing it to push your career forward at my expense, regardless of how the film turns out.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if I were Disney, and this is if it was classic Disney, they would part ways with her, scrap the film as it is with all the bad press from even before she spoke on the matter.
Yeah.
The freaking releases of the photos of the dwarves in general already looked horrendous and were getting mocked mercilessly online. Freaking scrap the film, put it to bed, and just rest on it.
Oh, if
Don't return to it for a while.
If this was in the heyday of Walt himself, I don't even think they would go the live action route. He would never.
No.
He would have been like, "Why are we remaking our classic films as live action? What's the point of that?" I don't think that's a route he would have ever gone.
No,
One of
absolutely
the
not.
things, talking about the hypocrisy of some of her comments and past comments, it makes me think too the fact that Disney wants to portray themselves as this woke company that's all these new ideals that they're embracing, but yet they're still banking off of the old racist, outdated material. And that's where I'm like, if you want to put your money where your mouth is, pull that content from your streaming service. Denounce everything from back in the heydays of
You
Disney.
see how many people lose their subscription then.
Right. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna talk this way, show me that you really believe it, and don't spend any of their money, because right now they're spending Snow White money.
Yep.
They're still spending money from 1937 from the success that movie brought the company, and it's still pulling in people on their streaming service. Same thing with what was the other classic Disney movie that they went back and tried to. They added crap before the movie to say, we don't agree with these.
Dumbo,
Peter Pan.
There's a
Pinocchio.
couple.
There was
of them.
I thought there was another one where
Pinocchio
they
does because of the smoking and stuff from Pleasure Island.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you're crapping on the work that's founded your company, and you're still collecting a check from these old, values and this outdated mentality, and it's like, so show me that you believe it, and that's the thing. They don't really believe it.
No.
They're doing it because it's trend worthy, and that's it.
And this is the problem at large with why, I mean, honestly, Hollywood's demise is just going beautifully with the SAG strike and the writer strike continuing. Because
If I was them, I'd use that as an excuse to drop some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
That's a perfect excuse. Just use it.
They kind of are. I mean, this is why they're wanting to there's rumors that they're going to be removing more stuff from Disney Plus so that they can retract it and take it as a loss.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about the old stuff. I'm saying even like the new Snow White remake. It's drop it and blame it on the writer's strike.
If they're going to do that with the current stuff they're already rumored to be taking off, why not do it with the things that haven't even come out yet?
Yeah.
Almost
scrap it.
Almost all of the stuff they're talking about pulling from Disney Plus has been newer stuff because nobody's watching
it.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. That's what I was talking about.
And it's almost like they have to simply because if they don't do it soon, then they can't report it as a loss. Because then they can't say, well, I mean, at the end of the day, the problem is that they're not only losing subscribers on Disney Plus, they are losing their soul and their identity. And kind of going back to the subtlety, rant that I just had, I couldn't be more excited about a lot of the writers who may be there, who may be decent. I feel bad for them. But the ones who aren't earning their paycheck, who are just there to be in the writer's room and make these ideas heard that get past some of the, we got to give them a leg up or we got to give them a chance. There used to be a kind of a grit that you had to have. And this isn't just in the film industry, it's in any industry where, yes, you want to give someone in the next generation a chance. That's always, I think, a good model to have in any kind of sustainable business. But you do it not at the expense of what the future holds. You do it to know that the legacy you've already built up to that point or the vision you have for the future can continue. And none of these companies are in that mindset or that mode of thinking. Warner Brothers, Universal, all the major studios have been bloated for quite a long time. Hollywood in general, and the model and the mentality it's brought forth with all these people that are there. Yes, you have your blue-collar 9-to-5ers that are there and will continue to be the bedrock of the ultimate, what you see in the theater. But those are not the ones that are putting the scripts and the actors and whatnot on screen. Mm-hmm. Those are not the ones that are the overall presentation. It's not like we've come on here and ranted and raven about, man, the production design of movies has just taken a crap and has just gone downhill and they all look like cheap garbage. No. If anything, we've done the opposite. We've probably been more critical of CGI stuff because they've depended on it too much and they've strung people out because they rush it to get out the next project. It's become such a money-making machine with, again, no quality, no substance. It's all about just churn out the junk food. Mm-hmm. Keep the people coming back for more, regardless of whether or not the content is edifying. And it's not.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think you hit the nail right on the head about them losing their identity and I think even more so the soul of what Disney was. I thought that, it's funny you mentioned that because I saw an ad just a day or two ago and at that point, I was like, Disney no longer has an identity anymore. This ad was for, it was one of Justin Roiland's shows, the guy who co-did Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites. It's a Hulu original. I was scrolling through Facebook, and it was Disney's page, Disney's Facebook page, advertising this show, which is an adult animated comedy, saying you can only watch this on Hulu, which makes sense. They own Hulu. But it shocked me because it's never Disney owned Miramax when they made Pulp Fiction, which is fine. It's you can make adult things, but they didn't advertise Pulp Fiction under the Disney banner. Yeah. The fact that it was Disney advertising Hulu's, it's only watch on Hulu, and I'm like, Disney would have never done that. They would have advertised it only under the Hulu banner because it's an adult content and they wanted to maintain the Disney as a family-oriented. And same thing with Deadpool. I don't care that Disney owns Deadpool and they're making an R-rated Deadpool movie. A lot of people were afraid they wouldn't. And it's no, I'm glad that they're staying true to Deadpool. But it doesn't have to be advertised under the Disney banner because that's not family-friendly. You use your Fox that you bought, the Fox Studios, to advertise it. You use Marvel to advertise it. But it's because Disney doesn't want to have that kiddish identity anymore. They're afraid, people won't come watch us if they think all we do is kiddie stuff. It's you're Disney. That should be the kiddie stuff. If you want to convince people to go see the adult stuff, advertise it under the companies you bought specifically for that reason. And I was at that point, I was yeah, Disney has lost their soul because they care more about trying to get butts in seats and fill this content than what they're supposed to be about.
They're scrambling. They don't, like you said, their identity is so far gone that they don't know who it is they're trying to attract anymore, to the point that they are just they're casting a broad net to any audience that they think would still be in their wheelhouse that they can still pull in. And honestly, it's kind of what sickened me, because when I grew up, yes, you had a lot of straight to VHS movies, and there's some people out there who don't even know what VHS is. But you
straight to streaming now.
Yeah, that was straight to streaming back in the day.
Yeah.
But you had straight to VHS movies that, were, yes, your money grabs. But even then, a lot of the films that I remember seeing there, or even in the theaters that Disney produced under the Disney banner, were not just films that were kiddie, as you say. They appealed to kids, but they were coming of age films. They were ways to break to a kid some of the things they were going to face in their life and raise them to be an adult that was conscious.
They were kid friendly, but they were never childish.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, what gave me so much hope was when this kind of evolved out of the mid-'90s, when you got Toy Story and you saw Pixar, and it was like, oh, okay, now we're going into this popular format of digital animation, and now we're going to bring forth these stories that are just as touching and teach valuable lessons that not only transcend beyond childhood, but into adult life, which is why both child and adult can enjoy them. But this is clearly the direction that Disney has owned, has always been, and this is what they're going to continue to do.
Walt founded it that way. He always wanted them to be family friendly. He said you don't have to he said they're accessible to kids, but you don't have to dumb it down for kids. It needs to have something that, yes, kids can watch it and be entertained, but then there's morals and values that adults, and even humor that adults can watch and still be entertained, because it's still sophisticated. It's not just the flashing lights to dangle keys in front of the kid.
And to me, what they've done now is they've realized that generation, that was the last generation of kids they ushered that in with, and now they have just purely banked on nostalgia, and they are trying to revisit those old childhood memories with just purely the IP alone, whether it's Star Wars, whether it now is new with Marvel, whether it is Hocus Pocus.
Or even the live-action remakes.
Live-action remakes that are just churned out in garbage, but they're all banking on this fact of you grew up with these, revisit these properties, and they want you to reintroduce them with your kids in the same room. The problem is the kids aren't entertained by them.
No.
They're not watching them. They're not turning up to see these movies. They may sit in the room with you, and they may be somewhat taken aback by some scene here or another, but they're not running to it and flocking to it, wanting to have their parents buy it for them in the store.
My nieces and nephews love the first Hocus Pocus. They liked the second, but that's not the one they asked to rewatch all the time.
Exactly.
They might have, when it first came out, asked to rewatch it a few times, but
Nobody's
they go back
asking
to Hocus Pocus.
to watch the Emma Watson Beauty and the Beast. They want to watch Belle from an animated version Beauty and the Beast. That's the classic. That's the one that has the action, that has the heart. And that's the real disconnect too. You can tell when there is a lack of heart in these creations. They don't have it anymore. They've lost it. And they all purely are just going back to what you remember as a child, and they're hoping that because you now are the breadwinner in your family and you're of age to have some of that extra income, hey, spend it here, spend it on Disney, relive this dopamine rush from your childhood.
Yeah.
And they've banked on that now for the last several years, I would say at least the last decade, regardless of whether or not they had hits or misses. And they are now fully on that. I would say they've fully jumped on that bandwagon within the last 5 years. And there's no sign of them getting off. And I think ultimately, unless they do a hard course correct, and I don't think it's going to take Iger at the helm. He's literally becoming, he is what they're hoping he's the Tim Cook. They are hoping he's the Tim Cook of Apple, which is to stabilize the ship after the creator's gone. Iger came in, he started guns a-blazing, acquiring all these properties that were successful. He already had some great people who were in charge. They've slowly departed from the company or even were ousted. Take someone like a creative at Pixar with John Lasseter. And what you're seeing is the slow deterioration of not a manager who has the talent, but is just trying to steady the course of the ship, to keep it afloat, to try to keep the books balanced. And there is no heart and soul in Disney anymore. It's gone. And unless they get somebody who really yearns to get back to what that wonderment of what Disney brought into the world, you're gonna continue to see them flounder, and that's gonna mean no pun intended. That is gonna mean them looking in the mirror and saying, "We're in the wrong freaking business right now. We need to stop where we're at and we need to reimagine and re-engineer what it is we know Disney to be. This is a completely wrong
I
direction.
think Once Upon a Time, Iger had it. Had
Another
like
pun.
the
I
love.
love it.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I was going to say mirror, mirror on the wall.
But I do.
Who's the wokest of them all?
I do think when he first took over for Eisner, because they ousted Eisner because he was ruining Disney. Roy O. Disney, like he came in and he tried to get rid of Eisner, and they put Iger in charge. And I think at that time period, Iger did care about Disney. I think it showed. But over time, I think I don't know whether it's just the shift of Hollywood going more further and further and left, and him feeling like he needed to keep in those good graces but you could tell. I don't think it is I think a job to him to just, well, okay, if I acquire, like you said, acquire this company, it's making the money. It was less about the content and the heart, and I think over time he just turned into just as corrupt a person as I think even Eisner was at the time. You could say what you will about Eisner. There's things I didn't like that he did at Disney, but he didn't run it into the ground the way Disney is now.
Fair point. Very fair point. Let's move on to our final segment of the night. We're going to move into our story time. Let's get it going.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
Alrighty, guys. So on the docket tonight, I didn't put it in the notes. It's a surprise one.
What is it?
A time where you were somewhere you weren't supposed to be. A time where you were somewhere you weren't supposed to be. And did you stay?
Here, right now.
I gotta go. Bye. Sorry. Or did you stay or did you leave and get up and admit, oh, whoops, I'm in the wrong spot?
Should I stay or should I go?
Hey now, I forget that song.
Did
Is
you
that how it
stay
goes?
or get
That's
up?
not the
Like
same
somewhere
song.
like.
Should I stay or should I go now? That's it. That's it.
You mean like somewhere like
I eventually got it.
just you were in like you say like did you say like you go into the wrong?
That's a good song too.
Yeah,
Who is that again?
both good 80s songs.
Crowded House?
It's Crowded House or Tears for Fears.
I think it's Crowded House.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Don't Dream It's Over. That's a good song. Yeah, that's a good one.
Tears for Fears is everybody wants to rule
the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Keith. You were saying.
No, I was just asking if because you say like did you stay or like did you go? But like do you mean like you walk into the wrong classroom and just stay because that's not where you were supposed to be, or do you mean like somewhere like
it
your
could be
parents said like
school.
you're not allowed to do, like go here and you went anyways? Like
Yes.
like you and Aaron.
no, that was. Well,
You've told that story before
Yeah, I've
with the
already
Dairy
told that
Queen cup,
story.
but that was still somewhere you weren't supposed to be.
It could
And
be
you got
that.
caught.
Actually, there was another time I remember from when we were little, and you'll know this. It was your next door neighbor Sam. I was in trouble.
Oh yeah.
Because and this was completely innocent, but one day Sam, who was a girl across the street, she was playing outside, and I went over, and we had kids up and down the street. We always played together. I went over there and I was playing with her, and she'd got this balloon from, I think it was Kentucky Kingdom. It was this Minnie Mouse balloon. Well, I was like, hey, can I hold it? And she was like, yeah. Well, I went to go hand it back to her after I was done looking at it, and it flew away. It slipped out of my hand, and boom, it started drifting.
Just like Disney.
It's just it's
it was
gone.
it was a prophecy. Disney's just drifting
From
away.
back then, it was never to return. It's gone. Popped up in the atmosphere. It's done. So I mean,
Because of global warming.
Yeah, climate change. But no, so I accidentally let it slip. Well, then I went over to Brandon Milburn's house, and we were sitting there on his swings, and I was telling him about it because she cried. She like went off inside her house and was bawling. So I went down there and I was like talking to him, and I was just like, yeah, she's just going crazy. I was like, I don't
Let
know
her balloon
why.
go, man.
I was like, I was like, I had it and I was handing it back and it slipped. Well, she told her grandma that I did it on purpose. So her grandma comes down, finds me down there at Brandon Milburn's, and she's just like, hey Brandon, did you happen to have her balloon? I was like, yeah. She was like, and you let it go? I was like, yeah. She was like, you know how much that balloon was? And I was like,
It's a Minnie Mouse balloon. It's probably expensive.
well, I was like, I'm a kid. I don't
back
know what
then,
I
it
don't know
was
the
like
meaning
$3.
of money. No, she said it was like $20.
Dang.
I remember
Be
because
like 50
she
now.
said, she goes, you need to go home and tell your mom how much that was, and to give her and have her write me a check.
Like, first of all, you spent that much money on a balloon, you're stupid.
No.
Yeah, well, trust me, they weren't too bright. I mean, they're all deceased now.
Don't be
wow.
Don't be mean.
I don't want to be. I don't want to speak ill of the dead.
Samantha's not deceased. Her grandmother is.
Or I'm sorry, yeah, her grandmother and her mom.
He said they're all deceased now. I'm like, dang.
Sorry,
the whole family
not
died.
Sam.
All because of that balloon.
All because of the balloon. All because of that
It
balloon.
was it was a prophecy for their family.
That's that.
Pop goes Louisa because Louisa
Well,
goes Pop.
at least we know they're in heaven
Yeah.
because the balloon went up.
That's right. It drifted upward.
Yeah.
But no, so she tells me, hey, you need to go home and tell your mom how much the balloon cost and that I would like the money for the balloon that you let go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I mean, of course, it's an adult and I'm a kid
Yeah,
and I'm
you're
shivering
scared.
and I'm
And
just
terrified because,
like, and I'm like, okay.
That was back when we respected adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, nowadays
now
you would just say,
cuss,
"Screw you!"
I'd cuss
and
her
give her the
out.
finger.
That's right. Flick her off and then I'd run away and I'd throw something at her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, so I go home and of course, like I'm talking to my mom and I'm all sheepish and she's like, what's wrong? And so I tell her my mom is pissed. But my mom is one of those that, no. She
I'm sure they did because
she was like, I'm not about to start something with this neighbor who's just going to rant and rave
Over
about some
a balloon.
stupid balloon. So she wrote me the check and then she said, you take this over there, you give this to her, and you never go back over there again. You're not allowed. And I was like, okay. So from that day, it was Sam's house is off limits, not allowed over there. And rightfully, I look back now and I'm like, I know why.
Yeah.
As a parent, I'd be pissed too. But
Well, and they don't want you also to get blamed for more crap. That's
exactly.
not
If
your
this is
child.
how petty they're going to be and not realize like, oh, this is just what freaking happens with kids. So there was like, this is maybe like, it's probably even a year later. I honestly don't know how long time span wise. It was in the summer and mom and dad were out grocery shopping or something. And I was at home with Chip and Amber and they were taking care of me and watching me. Well, I think I'd went over to your house, but you were playing over at Sam's, and all the kids were coming over to Sam's house. She had this pool party.
Oh,
going
she
on.
got she got a Minnie Mouse pool. I
Yeah.
remember it was shaped like that. It was shaped,
Oh my gosh.
She was obsessed with Minnie
it was,
Mouse.
It was shaped like Minnie Mouse.
Yep.
I mean, it was just one of those hard plastic pools.
And it was, but all the kids in the neighborhood were going over there because it was all just like, I mean, that was actually the beauty of that cul-de-sac is like, wherever the kids were, you went over to that house and everybody's parents were like, yeah, come on over.
Yeah.
Like, just open up to everybody. And so everybody was going over there and was like, I'm not supposed to go over there. So, of course, I did. I was like, I'm going to go over there. Everybody's over there. Everybody's having fun. Mom and dad aren't home. Why not? So I'm over there and I decided to do the genius move of like, yeah, everybody's jumping in the pool. Why not? You know, I'm going to jump in the pool, get completely soaked. And then, of course, I think it was Amber or Chip. Somebody came over to get me. My parents were home, and they were like, go find your brother. Tell him to get home. So they're looking up and down the street. Well, everybody's over there. So they come over there, and they're like, hey, Brandon, come on. We got to go. Like, we're going somewhere. I was like, oh, okay. So, like, I hop up, and I'm like, oh, no. It's like, I'm not supposed to be over here. And I'm freaking soaking wet, drenched. So I go in the back gate, and I try to go in the back door. And I remember my parents, they're sitting in the recliners in the living room. And it's literally, there's the turn out of the kitchen and go straight down the hallway to our room. So like I kind of sneak in, and then I just beeline it. My sister's like standing in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room. So I sneak behind her and beeline it down to my bedroom thinking, oh man, I'm in the clear. I'll just change real quick. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
I get down to my room and they're like, hey, Brandon. And I'm just like, yeah. Like, come here. So I like walk back down the hallway, walk of shame. And they're like, why are you so soaking wet? I was like, I was in the pool over at Sam's. I didn't lie. I was just like,
good for you.
And they were like,
You'd save that for later with the Dairy Queen.
that's
guy.
right. I wasn't as skilled then.
Yeah.
I became skilled in my craftiness later on.
Yeah.
I had a skill set of lying at level like 3.
Yeah.
It wasn't up to level 40 yet.
Yeah.
So like I get down the hallway and they're like, we told you not to go over there. They were like, go change, get in clothes, and they were like, and you're grounded. And I think I was only grounded like 2 weeks, but still 2 weeks in the middle of the summer. That's a long freaking time. And I actually remember You came over shortly after that, Keith, and I remember going outside, and it was like I could only go out in the backyard. Keith came over, and I was like lamenting, and I was pissed, and I was angry, and I was like arguing to him, and I said, I'm going to cheer for U of L because they like Kentucky. I'm going to vote Democrat because they're Republican. Like all the kid things that you can think of that I'm going to get my parents back.
Yeah.
And of course, like I just remember like getting all this stress off my chest. But yeah, all because I was somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be.
It happens.
Yep. So you got to do as your parents tell you.
It's true.
That was the moral of that story. I didn't mean to take up story time, but y'all got any other stories?
Nothing that elaborate or specific. I know I've told the story of like a church. Like I guess I was where I was not supposed to be, but not being where I was supposed to be. But the time that me, like Ty Chase and Tristan all didn't go to whatever Sunday night I think whatever, and we ran around the church and got in trouble for doing that. But I'm trying to think. I mean, I know there's times I went to like either the Haney's or which was at one end of the street, or Patrick's, which was at the other end of the street, when I wasn't supposed to. And my parents like, don't go over there, and I did it anyways. Kind of similar to Sam's because well, everybody was going over there, and
That's right.
I'm just like, oh, go. But I mean, yeah, other than just like, yeah, those type of things, I can't think of anything real specific right at the moment. But I do know there's been plenty of times that I did go riding my bike, and this is another reason why I wasn't supposed to go to Patrick's. I remember him and I think some kids that he knew that were off the street. I didn't really know them. We rode our bike through the ditch lines one day. Well, we did that a lot, but we just happened to get where we went past. My uncle lived in the neighborhood, like kind of off Mondamon behind us, and we went through the ditch line there, and I guess he happened to see us or whatever. And he told my mom, and then I got in trouble for that because
you weren't supposed to.
Well, it rained the very next day, and he threw this thing about like, oh, there was the water in the ditch line, like we were going to drown in the ditch line on our bikes. But he was like, see, this is why you shouldn't ride your bike through there, because look at this storm water coming through. And I'm like, yeah, it's a rapid torrent that was going to drown me. I don't know. I mean, I'm being smart about it now, but it's just one of those funny things where, like, I understood why my parents didn't want me to do it.
It didn't scare you,
and it
though.
wasn't the same reasoning that he was trying to give, just because he was trying to come up with. It's like, no, they didn't want me. You know, there's plenty of reasons why. I don't think it was because the torrential downpour of the ditch line.
Sean, what about you?
It's funny because part of mine has to do with the same ditch line, I think.
Oh, yeah, probably.
We're talking about the like the big tunnels and stuff down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
they were fun to ride the bike through.
Yeah. Well, we used to do the same thing, but my parents specifically told me not to ride our bikes back into the new neighborhood that they were building.
Oh, yeah.
So back behind Lemont Acres, they built like a new neighborhood. It's not new anymore, but they built a new subdivision, and while that was being built, there was a lot of good treehouse wood laying around on the building sites, and so we wanted to build a treehouse.
I mean, I would have
next
done the
door,
same thing if
so
I found it.
Why not?
We didn't have any money, so we couldn't buy wood. We couldn't go anywhere to buy the wood, and whatever wood our dads had in the shed or the garage, we had already used. So the best place to get wood for our treehouse was the new neighborhood, and we were specifically told not to go, or I was not to go riding through that neighborhood. Number one, it was too far away from the house, and it was dangerous. I mean, there was like nails and equipment, construction equipment, and basements that you could fall in and probably never get out of when you're a kid, and things like that. So we weren't supposed to go back there, but one day it was evening or whatever, and it was like my parents that was back when you got on your bikes and went for 5-6 hours. You were gone. Nobody asked questions where you were. I mean, it was much better times.
Came back home as the
safer
sun was
times. I
going
didn't have to
down.
worry about somebody killing me or anything like that.
No.
But yeah, we come back when the sun went down, and it was like, well, it's starting to get dark. Let's ride back there and let's gather up what we can and put it in the wagon and wheel it back, because we would pull the radio flower wagon behind one of our bikes.
That's right.
And so we loaded up a bunch of wood and brought it over there and started nailing it to this tree. This poor tree. It didn't look anything like a tree house. I think of a tree house I look at like Ernest Scared Stupid in the tree house that they had.
I think of Dennis the Menace.
This was
Walter
Dennis the
Matthau.
Menace. That was a great tree house.
Yep.
This was pathetic. I mean, it was 2x4s, all kinds of different lengths, nailed to this tree as a ladder to get up higher, and then. I mean, we ended up burning the stupid thing down by accident, but
Are you serious?
Yes. But that's another where you shouldn't go or something you shouldn't get into story. But yeah, we got home and nailed all the stuff to the tree, and it was like eventually my dad or it's probably my mom. Eventually, one of them looked next door and was like, treehouse just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like there's more wood. Where are y'all getting that? So they figured out where I was going, and I got in a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't supposed to go back there, and I did. I stole probably hundreds of dollars worth of lumber.
And as a kid, you don't think about it.
You don't scrap
it's
pieces of plywood laying around. That's a great piece of wood.
Yeah.
I was like, that triangle-shaped piece of wood from the roof that they cut on this thing, like that. I'm going to make something out of that.
Yeah.
We're going to use that.
You don't realize it's like, that's theft.
That was gold. That was gold back then.
Exactly. And also, you're just sitting there and you're thinking, they're not going to use it. It's laying on the ground.
Yeah.
They're not
It's
about
got
to
dirt all over
this.
it, mud,
Yeah.
nails sticking out of it. No,
Right.
we took that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I got in trouble. I mean, it's a similar situation. I was probably grounded for a little while, but it's funny because like when you get grounded from some things, but not from others.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was like, I didn't get grounded from hanging out with the kid that I went and committed these crimes with. It was like I got grounded from riding my bike.
Yeah.
It's like, so I can walk.
Brandon would get grounded, but like you said, I was in his backyard playing with it. Like,
Well, it was like the grounding for me was I couldn't leave the premises.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I couldn't leave my yard. I could
Yeah.
go outside, but like I remember there being times
because they
where
didn't want you bugging them in the house. It's like, go out back.
Well, of course. And it was like you can go out and see other kids playing where you can't go.
Yeah.
So then it was the pity
Just
me
look at
party.
'em. Yeah.
Like enjoy what you can
That's
enjoy.
a great
Yeah.
punishment, though.
It is. Well, and then it would always escalate or change depending on the circumstance. Like you said, if it was like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a time where I got grounded from like watching TV or something. That would be another punishment that would come. It was like, it always fit the crime that you committed.
Yeah.
But
That's good.
Yeah, for your own good. And then
Yeah.
there were always times where I would, and I'm not going to drag it on. I know we're done. There were times though where you would get to the end of a grounding, and I would do something else stupid, so I'd just get another week tacked on.
Yeah.
And that was, I think the worst I ever did was like, it was like 2 weeks in a row, and I was at the very end of my grounding, and I was just hanging off the back of the couch, and I flipped over the arm, and my elbow went through the curio cabinet glass. And at first they were checking, making sure I was all right, and then afterward they were just pissed that I broke the glass and they had to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, and they were just like, "You're grounded for another week," and I was like, oh. But then I will say that second week they showed mercy. It got to like Thursday, and they were like, "You can go play." And I ran out. Man, I ran out of that door so fast.
Yeah.
It was still like sunset, but those were like the best times because, like you said, it was like just get out and play when you could.
Yep.
And you were out all day long. Oh, good times in the summer. Good times.
It's working! It's working!
He's always got to find a way to get it in there somehow.
Good times.
Always.
Good times.
Good times. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate all the love and the support.
Love and support.
Want to share with you all our social media right there at the bottom of your screen.
What's that
Like,
say?
share, subscribe. It's got all of them right there. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Pics, and of course search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube and on Rumble. We appreciate any sharing of those, liking and subscribing. Do it all on all of the platforms. Follow
of
us
them.
everywhere.
Oh, there it is.
That's it.
We're everywhere. We're even on porta pots.
Yeah.
Red
Yeah.
Moon
You
toilets, man.
can't take a crap
I saw some the other
without
day.
seeing us.
That's right.
They look like exactly like our old logo.
That's it.
That's why we had to change it.
I ain't gonna lie, we did. It was a little too close.
Because my sister hadn't seen them before. I went and saw when I sent that picture to you
Yeah.
all. I was watching my nephew play t-ball or whatever, and she was like, "That does look like you." It's like, "Yep,
Yep.
Yep.
we know, we're
It's like,
aware."
I told people
love it.
for the longest time in college, I was like, "How do you think we really make our money?" It's like I have to make it somehow. It's to fund all these projects that we don't do.
She was like, you should take
Crap
a picture.
ton of money.
She's like, you should take a picture of that and send it to Sean and Brandon. It's like, oh, we're all aware.
It's like, trust me. I mean, at this point, I get at least a few a year of people who are just like, hey, I didn't know you were in this business.
Every time my wife goes for a run somewhere and sees one, she sends me a message or
there it
whatever.
is.
That's right. That's what we're known for.
One
Movies
day-
and crap.
Hopefully, we'll be known for good movies,
Yeah.
not crap movies. Okay, guys, that's gonna do it. That was terrible.
Following in my footsteps.
Oh God, I deserve that one. There is another way to reach us, though.
Yeah.
Keith, you know that way.
Mightn't it be email at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
Mightn't it be? I like that.
Mightn't it be?
Mightn't it be? It
Yes.
might be.
It could.
It could.
All right, guys. Next week, I think we're reviewing Gran Turismo.
I hope so.
I
That's
think
the one on the block.
I don't think there's
That's the bigger
we're
movie.
good with that one.
Try to push it over the Blue Beetle. I don't think it's going to be that hard to do that. So we'll see. Well, we're going to
Do you
contribute
think?
to that.
Do you
total.
think it'll hit? I think
it's going to be decent. I think it'll attract more.
I was just saying,
average
will it
viewers.
hit number one at the box office? And I'm
I don't know.
thinking,
I don't know.
I don't. If it doesn't get it, I know Blue Beetle's not, so I would think Barbie would pop
Barbie
back
and
up.
Oppenheimer may
Yeah.
pop back up there with Gran Turismo in third.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, or Blue Beetle in third and then Gran Turismo in fourth.
You know,
I'm digging the video game movies though.
Yeah, they-
I mean,
well,
Uncharted
PlayStation-
wasn't bad, and freaking Twisted Metal.
Yes.
that is great.
that's
I need
good.
to watch it. I haven't
Honestly,
watched it
the
yet.
PlayStation Studio projects so far, like Uncharted, I think could have been better, but
Yeah,
it
it
wasn't
could have
bad.
been. It was- yeah.
But so far, I think they're being faithful enough to what they own. So
I'll have to give Twisted Metal a try. I'm
like
looking
it.
forward to it now that
It's fun.
You've praised it, and yeah, I've
I've not seen the whole
Uncharted.
thing yet, but what I've seen, I do think it's good.
Oh, it's.
And honestly, if I've
I'm
seen
excited for the next season.
Gran Turismo, and I've heard it's just a good kind of like old traditional sports story of like a up and comer like rising to the occasion. I'm like, all right, I can get by with
I really
that.
appreciate the premise they went with. It's like if
Yes.
you're going to make a Gran Turismo movie, at least they didn't try to do like Need for Speed, which was just a
And I
Fast
will
and
say,
Furious
I think
knockoff.
Gran Turismo is just one of those series that has this cult following that it's not necessarily that they're moviegoers, but I do think they're the kind that would be like, they would show up to see this based on the fact that they went with a more realistic story to not only show their love and support for the franchise, but also be like, it actually looks like a decent movie. So, and you got Orlando Bloom and David Harbour. You got some good like central like people. They've done a good job with casting people they know are anchors to pull people in.
Yeah.
I think they have enough of a following that they're, with Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland in Uncharted.
Yeah.
They're pulling enough eyeballs. What's his name in Twisted Metal?
Anthony Mackie,
Mackie,
Thomas Hayden Church is in it.
Yeah.
And the guy that voices Sweet Tooth is a big one name too, but I can't
Isn't
think
it
of it
a
right
wrestler that plays him, isn't it?
now. Yeah, the wrestler.
He's one of
But
the
he doesn't
Samoa
do the
Joe,
voice.
I think,
Yeah.
is the wrestler, and then is it David Arnett?
Oh yeah.
He does the
yeah.
voice.
Or
and
Will
I-
Arnett.
Will Arnett. Thank
Will
you.
Arnett,
It's
yeah.
Will Arnett. David Arnett's someone different.
Okay. Well,
Obviously.
Gran Turismo next week. Until next time, guys, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and Truffle Shuffle. There he is.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.